Delaware. We've got 2 competitive races we can win in Florida. We've got a seat in Louisiana. We should win a seat in Hawaii. We should win a seat in the northern Chicago suburbs in Illinois. We got a great chance of winning. And 3 or 4 others that I think we got a good shot. So you take 4 to 8 seats Republican going over to the Democratic side. That is the scenario that we've been paying attention to. We saw good early voting trends, no enthusiasm gap in the early voting, and some of the turnout that we're seeing in a number of our key races is not showing the enthusiasm gap that a lot of people were predicting.
So do you have a number?
My number is, the other guys say they're going to take both houses. I say we're holding on to both houses, and I'll definitely feel very good if we do.
Governor Tim Kaine, the DNC chairman. That wasn't a number, but we'll accept your answer. Thank you kindly.
All right. Thanks, Keith.
All right. In a moment, we're going to have the first results from that West Virginia Senate race between Joe Manchin, the governor, and John Racy, plus early results from Ohio and North Carolina as those 7:30 closing times hit. MSNBC's midterm election coverage 2010 will continue from New York and elsewhere after this.
You better run to Men's Warehouse. Suits are on sale, including designer brands and big and tall. Buy one and get a second suit for just $100. You're gonna like the way you look, I guarantee it.
Ben and his family live on this block. Ben's a RE/MAX agent, and he's a big part of this community. RE/MAX agents know their markets, and they care enough to get to know you too. Nobody sells more real estate than RE/MAX. Visit RE/MAX.com today.
I'm in first, I'm out last, and I devote myself completely to my job.
Good luck, Vicky Fuller.
Well, they look great together.
Suppose I don't have standards?
Sure you do. When you got your pap smear on air, you wore a silk robe.
Okay!
Classy touch.
I'm not giving up.
You'd sleep at the office if you could. Let me tell you how it turns out.
We're gonna change a few things. Every story that we do is gonna have to be sensational.
You're nuts.
Yes.
Morning Glory, rated PG-13. Everyone has someone to go heart healthy for. Who's your someone? Campbell's Healthy Request can help. Low cholesterol, 0 grams trans fat, and a healthy level of sodium. It's amazing what soup can do.
The Vanilla Caramel Latte from Maxwell House International Cafe. The 60-calorie way to stop your world.
Oil companies make huge profits.
Last year, Chevron made a lot of money.
Where does it go?
Every penny and more went into bringing energy to the world.
The economy's tough right now, everywhere.
We pumped $21 billion into local economies, into small businesses, communities, equipment, materials.
That money
is
can make a
making
big
a huge difference
to a lot of people.
This is attorney Mark Dancer, who practices law in northern Michigan. If you've been injured or a loved one has been killed in an auto accident, you don't need a downstate law firm.
You need me, and when you call me, you get me.
Imagine waking up with 20/20 vision. LASIK could make that happen. And right now at LASIK Plus, you could save $500 on the procedure. LASIK Plus could eliminate the hassle of annoying glasses and dried out contacts by treating your astigmatism, nearsightedness, or farsightedness. So get your treatment with the most recommended LASIK provider and save $500. Imagine your life in focus. LASIK Plus. Call, click, or come in now and save $500, but only till the end of the year. Offer not valid in California.
This is attorney Mark Dancer, who practices law in northern Michigan. If you have been injured or have fallen on someone else's property, you don't need a downstate law firm.
You need me, and when you call me, you get me.
All men and women have certain unalienable rights. Life, liberty, and the freedom to believe that our best days are still ahead.
Indeed, the 7:30 Eastern Time poll closings, as represented by the wonderful map of North Carolina, Ohio and West Virginia 5 seconds hence. And we have some information, at least, if not necessarily calls, from the 3 key races there in the Senate in each of them. And starting in West Virginia, it is too early to call between Governor Joe Manchin and the Republican and Tea Party candidate John Racy. We are, again, too early to call. Ohio, not the case. To replace the retiring Senator Voinovich, NBC News projects Rob Portman, the former Bush budget director, will in fact take that seat and retain it for the Republicans. The North Carolina Senate race, Mr. Burr seeking another term in office there. This one is also too early to call, but Mr. Burr leads in that case. And from 7 o'clock still considered too early to close at the 7 o'clock, too early to call rather, from the 7 o'clock close between Senator Isaacson and the Democratic challenger Michael Thurmond. So still half an hour into poll closing time. The pickup in the Senate is 1. We could call this the swing, I suppose, as Indiana goes back to the Republicans via Mr. Coates taking over from Mr. Bayh. And that then is the picture of the Senate with the remaining seats not represented, the ones still available in our night of 37 different Senate elections around the nation. Of particular interest among the many governor's races, also 37 in number, too close to call in Ohio. Not too early, but too close between the incumbent governor Ted Strickland, the Democrat, and the Republican and Fox News challenger John Kasich. Well, he had a show on Fox News. Let's call it what it is. If you ran for well, no, that's a bad example, but we'd be saying MSNBC.
No. Can I just, I think the electorate is so interesting to watch, and some states are fascinating. New York's a liberal state. You know, it tends to elect Democratic senators. Iowa and Ohio are fascinating to watch. Iowa has Harkin and has Grassley. You figure. Ohio has done it again. They've got Sherrod Brown, who's sort of an Ed Schultz Democrat. Labor, strong for labor, free trades, very questionable about global baloney and all that stuff. And now they've got Rob Portman, Mr. Free Trade, Mr. Bush, a total Bush holdover, a total free trader, and they've got both of them. What's it average out to? What is the statement coming out of Ohio?
The statement is, as in most voting, lesser of two evils. It is always a mistake to presume that a vote is cast for the entire platform of a particular party when cast for an
Sherrod
individual.
Brown stands for something so strong, so visceral. I don't trust trade. I'm for the working guy, the working stiff. I don't trust the big corporations. And along comes Rob Portman.
Well, this would be one reason why Ohio is a swing state, and it's always at issue in the presidential race.
What do you think in Ohio?
All right, one thing, not to make it, if I didn't make it clear before, in West Virginia, we are saying that Joe Manchin is ahead there, although that one remains too early to call, the Senate race with Manchin and Racy. Chris just mentioned an Ed Schultz kind of Democrat. We have an even stronger example of an Ed Schultz Democrat, Ed Schultz, who joins us again from Las Vegas. The West Virginia race, this was looked at. I mean, there's not a bellwether in the Senate. It's a manageable number. It's not 435 seats. Tell me about what this indication for you at this point that Manchin is ahead with less than 1% reporting.
Well, Manchin is not a lefty. And Manchin ran a very calculated campaign. He did an ad with a gun. He went out in the woods. He talked about, right to bear arms. He played right to the heart and soul of those folks that live in the mountains in West Virginia and actually ran away from President Obama's agenda. And he's a West Virginia guy. He's a governor. They trust him. He went through a traumatic loss of life with that mining disaster. He connected emotionally with the people in West Virginia. And his opponent has been somewhat out of the fraternal order of Sharon Angle when it comes to making goofy comments. So I'm not really surprised that Joe Manchin is doing as well as he's doing. Getting back to Ohio, Keith and Chris, I just got off the phone with Sherrod Brown. They are very encouraged about what they're hearing in Ohio right now. Strickland, they're very confident. And this is a huge pickup if they do win the governor's chair, because for the first time in 20 years, they would be controlling the redistricting board in the state of Ohio, which consists of the auditor, which is going to be a Democrat, and the Secretary of State, which is going to be a Republican. If Strickland wins this means that the Republican state Senate is not going to be able to run roughshod over the Democrats when it comes to congressional redistricting. And so they need Strickland to win big time, which of course will play very big in 2012 for Barack Obama. I mean, the country knows when there's a presidential election, it's Ohio, it's Florida, it's California.
Right.
So they're very encouraged about what's going on in Ohio right now, and they want this redistricting board to go their way for the first time in 20 years.
What would happen if Fox got control of redistricting in Ohio, Ed?
Well, I would have to go to Ohio and run for something. But, you know, it was. I think it's very fair to say, you know, I'm not convinced that John Kasich would be as popular as he is had he not had that Fox show. But the fact that Portman is in great shape there in Ohio, the fact that Strickland feels very good at this hour, shows that it's a mixed bag. And I think it also shows that it's going to be a real toss-up in 2012. And that's why making sure that the Republican state Senate in Ohio can't come in and strong-arm and redistrict and draw the lines to favor the Republicans. This is, again, as we say during the presidential, but now in the midterm, it's Ohio.
If you're sitting in the White House, Ed is singing music to you right now, because I've been watching this now for wherever they asked President Clinton to go, where they focused all their apples to try to hold their last redoubts. Florida, with Alex Sink, they're hoping like heck she can win tonight. They're hoping they can hold that seat in Strickland, and they're really hoping for some help in Colorado. Those three states have been sort of like the last redoubt, if you will, if you're in the Alamo situation they're in tonight, which is to try to hold the basic fort, the mission.
Well, and what did the Democratic candidate against Mr. Portman do last week? Lieutenant Governor Fisher essentially said, I'm not going to win this thing. Here are the funds.
Yeah.
You know,
the opposite of Evan Bayh.
The opposite of Evan Bayh. One could discuss what happened in Florida as a contrast.
Yeah.
Is there something with Evan Bayh?
No, I just think, actually, something with Indiana. I think Indiana is fascinating. You look at those exit poll results out of Indiana were fascinating. 45% of people saying they identify with the Tea Party. And who did they elect? They elected Dan Coates. Dan Coates, 30 years in Washington as a staffer, 8 years as a congressman, 10 years as a senator, then a corporate lobbyist for 5 years. And so this whole we're going to take our country back, if you're not going to take it back from Dan Coates, who are you going to take it back from?
In Washington, he lived in the suburbs. So he was an outsider in a geographic
But similarly, with Rob Portman with this race in Ohio, 6 terms in the House, 2 cabinet-level positions under George W. Bush, the top recipient of corporate money from insurance industries and commercial banks this year. And it's going to be represented as some sort of Tea Party victory. If this is what the Tea Party stands for, then we need to redefine populism in this country.
Rachel, banks and corporations are people too. The Supreme Court has made that clear.
Citizens United taught us.
53% of Indiana voters said they were voting to express their opposition to Barack Obama. The way you do that is in the Republican slot of a two-party election. So Coates could have been anybody.
Coates could, but 45% affiliation with the Tea Party, and then they pick the corporate lobbyist, ex-senator, ex-congressman, ex-congressional staffer.
You want consistency?
It's just all of this right-wing populism, more outsiders. We want fresh faces in Washington. I'm done with it.
But that's how co-opted the Tea Party was, pretty much instantaneously by Dick Armey and other Washington lobbyist Republican interests.
That is the summation of the argument. It can be answered in the words Dick Armey.
Yeah.
It's not a grassroots. It may have elements of grassroots, and in individual races it may be extraordinary grassroots. Rand Paul, that is an expression, at least the process by which he got into the Senate tonight, or will, according to.
If your name was Richard Armey and you were growing up, would you say, "Call me Dick"?
Rand Paul.
Moving along.
All right, no, I already exceeded my number of jokes in that regard.
Okay.
March 1st of this year. But Rand Paul is the reverse of this. So, the consistency is, to your point, there is none.
Can I just defend Indiana? Indiana is a very peculiar state. For years, they had a couple of rules then. All the Democrats, even the more moderate, reasonable Democrats, smart Democrats like Lee Hamilton, all had to vote for the balanced budget amendment, even though it was a joke, that constitutional amendment. Every year they had to go through the procedure of doing that. They had another rule. Everybody had to drive an American car. It is a very interesting state, and I think that you have certainly a philosophical concern about the voting patterns of Evan Bayh. He may be too conservative for a Democrat, but the fact is he's worried. He's worried. I think he was definitely worried about the cultural consequences of being a Democrat in Indiana, and we're seeing tonight what they're facing out there. It's a conservative state
himself by bad-mouthing Democrats every time he gets anywhere.
And I also think he wants to run for governor at some point.
Yeah, good luck, Evan.
Well, not with your support. I think you might be doing some college tours out there, but just a guess.
Good luck.
You know, I think that's what I think we're zeroing in on a guy who is very worried about being a national Democrat.
When we return, our special guest, Evan Bayh of Indiana. I made that up. I'm sorry. An incumbent senator locked in another tight race. Colorado's Michael Bennet joins us. Stand by.